Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on electric mobility. This is Anirudh. We're just going to give everyone maybe a couple of minutes as everyone is just getting in. So we will start the webinar in around 60 seconds. All right. So good afternoon once again. This is Anirudh from Blue Smart Mobility. First of all, thank you so much for taking time this afternoon to join our webinar. We hope to provide some incredible insights and share some of our learnings, some of the things that we have learned over the last year or so, and tell you about our experience in running electric mobility over 40 lakh kilometers. Broadly, what we're going to cover today is, operational efficiency of, running an entire fleet, talking about a little bit about the infrastructure, which is actually which makes the backbone of electric mobility. And also, we'll give it a twist in terms of what is the government looking at and how the situation might play out. I hope everyone is safe at home and following all the guidelines. And I hope that we are able to make good time this quarantine to learn about electric mobility. So without much further ado, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Anirudh. I lead operations and growth at BlueSmart. Over to my co-panelists Rishabh and Tushar in that order right now.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rishabh and I handle technology at BlueSmart. Me and my team look after product design, product development, and data science. This includes the app, the driver partner app, the matching algorithms, as well as the tech platform, which looks after the charging. Over to you, Tushar.
Hi, guys. My name is Tushar Garg. I take care of corporate development and strategy at BlueSmart. And without any further ado, let us take you right inside the webinar. So just before we step into and share with you more insights from the 40 odd lakh plus kilometers that we have driven on electric vehicles, we thought we'll quickly introduce BlueSmart to you and take you through a journey that we have seen over about a year of our existence. So BlueSmart essentially, guys, is an innovative all-electric ride-hailing platform that aims to address the massive challenges around reliable mobility and growing pollution in the mega cities of India. BlueSmart was incorporated in early 2019, and we started our operations with 70 cars in June of 2019. Then in December 2019 is when we moved to a full stack BlueSmart Ops with 145 cars, focusing on the micro market of Gurgaon, setting new paradigm for reliable mobility. With the increase in our fleet to 350 plus cars, February 2020 is when we expanded our operations geographically up till the Delhi Terminal T3 airport. And as of 14th March 2020, the day when we completed 100 days of us going full stack on BlueSmart, we had 40,000 plus downloads on our app. We were serving 10,000 plus active weekly customers, and we had completed upwards of 175,000 all electric trips on our platform. We at BlueSmart, guys, also live by the principles of responsible mobility with a triple bottom line approach of people, planet, and prosperity. I'll very quickly touch upon all these three parts before moving ahead. Under people, our two big pillars are customers and the driver partners. So ensuring no denials, no search, and on time, every time service to our customers, and a no financial burden and a driving stress-free for our driver partners is the necessary conditions that drive our business strategy. Also, leaving our planet better than what we got drives our second principle, where sustainability is at the core of our business principles. Lastly, guys, on prosperity, suitable business unit economics, favorable technology curve for electric vehicles, and a positive working capital helps us to ensure continued value creation for our customers, driver partners, and our stakeholders like yourselves.
Thanks, Tushar, for the introduction. A lot of people asked us before the webinar, they wanted to know what is the difference between running an IC vehicle versus an electric vehicle. And Anirudh here heads our operations. So Anirudh, why don't you tell everyone more about this?
Yeah, sure, Rishabh. So, thanks. So I know a lot of questions have come in regarding, EVs versus ICEs. ICEs being the acronym for internal combustion engine vehicles. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you through, just a couple of ideas about what is an EV, how is it different, how our EVs perform, because we have a huge fleet of EVs. How is it to operate an EV fleet? But I'd also encourage you, just before I get started, that we have already got a bunch of questions and we've structured this webinar to answer them. But in case you have any further questions, feel free to type in. There's a Q&A section that you will probably see in your Zoom app. So you can type in your questions and we will try to take as many of them as possible towards the end of the webinar. Yeah. So jumping straight in, an EV has basically simple components, right? So I mean, ultimately what you need is a power bank, which is ultimately your battery, and then you have a motor that is connected to your drive axle, and ultimately your motor is powering your car. Just like an engine drives, an internal combustion engine is ultimately what drives a regular ICE vehicle. A motor is what is broadly the power from this, and obviously there are certain electrical components that go into actually helping this motor and the battery operate in unison. When it comes to our vehicles, broadly we have the Tata Tigor variant, including the XM Plus variant, which is a long range vehicle, and we have the e-Veritos in multiple forms, and we have a couple of Hyundai Konas, and then we have we are also exploring like multiple other options when it comes to EVs as and when they're coming into the Indian market. As you can see, like our Tigors broadly have ranges anywhere between 110 kilometers to 213 kilometers, and you can see that there are two different battery pack sizes, and each of these battery packs have so basically these are two different models. One is the more advanced model, the one that you see on your right hand side is more advanced, and similarly with the Verito also you have like two different models, that one that runs around 9500 kilometers to 140, and the other one that runs anywhere between 160 to 180, right? So let's move on to the next slide. What this also means is that since the block diagram of an EV ultimately has far fewer components, you can actually see the actual components when you open up an EV are also, the number of moving parts are actually much lesser when compared to an ICE vehicle. Right? There are no carburetors, pistons, the entire, assembly of an engine, including all the protection, etc., is very different when it comes to an EV. The EV, therefore, is also easier to maintain. And this actually translates when you're running a large EV fleet, you actually get the benefits of having lower maintenance costs. And that's, I think, the first aspect that, a lot of people are asked about. So just the ratio of moving parts, you're saying 2000 plus to 18, 19, 20 parts, that's a 1:100 ratio, and that's the kind of maintenance benefits that you get while running an EV. Let's move on. So the other interesting question that we keep getting, in India is "Kitna deti hai," right? And we are all concerned so much about our own vehicles, about how many kilometers per liter they run. How we measure the "Kitna deti hai" of an EV is by measuring how many kilometers it runs per unit of charge consumed. The unit of charge it consumes is just like your fans and lights and ACs and your TVs at home, right? The same unit, the kilowatt hour unit, and how many kilometers per kilowatt hour it runs is what we tend to measure, right? And as you can see, very interestingly, and we have shown you data right over from October of last year till March, and you can see that there's an interesting trend that's playing out there, right? It starts with around 6 kilometers per kilowatt hour. It goes up, it drops to around 6.19, then it goes to 7.96, and then it comes down back to like 7.25. And you can actually plot the temperature of Delhi Gurgaon area, and you can actually see that there is a there's a relationship between how much the vehicle runs and the actual ambient temperature that you're seeing, right? So what I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about in this webinar is that what they say theoretically about EVs is something that you can actually see while running those 40 lakh kilometers. This is like data of running BlueSmart. You actually see those differences that come in, right? Of, there's a sweet spot of temperature between 20 to 25 degrees Celsius when your car starts operating, it starts giving you a lot more juice, right? So that's the piece. And when it comes to the cost itself, you can simply look at, when you're looking at the cost per unit, the cost per unit varies depending on what kind of meter you're using, right? There are certain governmental guidelines that bring in EV meters. The EV meters actually have tariffs as low as 4 rupees per kilowatt hour versus, you have commercial rates that range anywhere 8, 9 rupees per kilowatt hour, right? So broadly, if you can actually break up the fuel cost, you can actually see that, the cost of electric mobility is hardly around a rupee per kilometer, right? And that is incredible. And those are the core benefits. Apart from the fact that we're doing something good for, the environment, there's actually, a solid business in running electric vehicles, because what you're effectively doing is your fuel costs are much lower, right? And just to show you what happens in the fuel cost, what I've plotted here is something, basically we're comparing the cost of diesel cars, your CNG vehicles, and your electric vehicles, right? And if you can actually see, if you look at the total cost of operations, right? The total cost of operations. The total cost of operation is actually evaluated as, your total capex that goes into buying the vehicle plus the operational cost of running that vehicle. And EVs have a much lower cost of running the vehicle, but the upfront capex is slightly higher, right? And that's why if you see the left-hand side of your graph, you can actually see that, the EV's cost starts at a higher level compared to the CNG vehicle, but then there is an inflection point that happens at some point, right? And when you go right off that curve, you're suddenly cheaper than both diesel and CNG. You're mostly cheaper than diesel throughout, but the comparison between EV to CNG actually crosses, and the x-axis actually has kilometers driven per day. So what it effectively means for an operations guy like me is basically to run the vehicle more per day. So I have, KPIs in the company that basically say that I need to run the vehicle a particular number of kilometers per day, get a particular number of trips, so that the EV starts becoming more effective to operate than even the CNG vehicle. And that's how the blue bubble that you see on the green line, as it moves along the green line, that's how the benefits, those are the benefits that you get from this piece, right? So that's broadly what I wanted to talk about when it came to the total cost of ownership when it comes to electric vehicles. I think the next interesting piece that actually ties in beautifully, and a lot of questions that came in, is what is your backbone? How are you even running this fleet? I mean, you're running 400 vehicles, well and good, but how are you running it? I mean, how are you powering it? Where is the electricity? Where are you parking them? I don't see your BlueSmart vehicles parked on the road, right? And Rishabh, could you take that part? I mean, could you talk about the electric charging and stuff?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Anirudh. So I think one of the questions which a lot of people wanted to know was how is a EV charging station different from a petrol pump? So I think the key parameters on how they vary is, one, the turnover time of the car. So in a petrol pump, the car comes, leaves within 3 to 5 minutes, and that's it. Whereas when you talk about an EV charging station, the car generally comes there for 45 minutes to 1.5 hours, sometimes even more. So due to this, the space requirements of a petrol pump are much lower as compared to an EV charging station. Apart from this, there is another big challenging part of setting up an EV charging station, and that is getting the electric load. So depending on the size of the station which you are going to set up, you need anywhere between 200 to 800 kilowatt of load, which in fact in the current scenario is not easy to get. So basically there are two challenges to setting up a EV charging station, something which we internally call the 2 L's, land plus load. So getting these two things together is kind of tough, and that's what makes it challenging. And despite the challenges, BlueSmart has managed to set up a total of 169 chargers in Gurgaon alone. Apart from that, like Anirudh mentioned, there is a policy support in terms of EV. You get special tariffs for EV. You get up to 50% cheaper rates. So that's something which the government has done, which is going to help. Next, we are going to cover what are the different types of charging. So basically, there is a slow charging and there is a fast charging. Slow charge occurs at around 3 to 7 kilowatt. It typically is AC charging. AC charging means your normal socket, which is used at your home to, you use it for mobile charging, for charging your electric heater. Only difference is that you need a power socket for this. Typically, in slow charge, EVs take 8 to 12 hours, depending on the range of the EV, and it is best for charging overnight. Whereas when you come to fast charging, it happens at up to 22 kilowatt. Typically, it is DC charging, not your alternating current, so it's direct current, and the time can vary anywhere between 1.5 hours to, in some cases, 3 hours, again depending on the range of the EV which you are charging, and it is suitable to charge on the go. Now, if you look at the graph on the right hand side, this is a fast charging graph which is cumulative of all the long range cars which we have. And what you see is that typically with time, the SOC, which is the percentage battery in the car, it's like a straight line. But as soon as you reach 80, between 80 and 90%, there is a sharp bend in the curve, which you can see. And this is something which gives us a lot of opportunity to add efficiency in the charging. So what we typically do is, as soon as the SOC of the car reaches around 80-85%, we switch the car from fast charging to slow charging, and that helps us in optimizing the way we charge and getting better output from our resources. Now, one of the questions which we received, in fact, more than one people had asked this was, can you charge your EV at home? And the answer to that is yes. Like I said, a slow charger goes into a power socket that's available in most homes. You just plug it in and plug the other end to your car. It can be easily installed at your home or in your society. It's as easy as getting a cable connection. Moving on. So we learned about fast charging and we learned about slow charging. Now there is something beyond fast and beyond slow, something which we call rapid charging. Now there are different terminologies for these. Some people call slow as level 1, fast as level 2, rapid as level 3. Some people call it slow, fast, rapid. But ultimately, all of this depends on the power at which you are charging. Slow happens up to 7. Fast charging happens around 20 kilowatt, whereas rapid charging happens between 50 kilowatt to 350 kilowatt. So if you look, a prime example of a rapid charger would be a Tesla supercharger. Tesla supercharger, in fact, has moved from 150 kilowatt to a 350 kilowatt. And the latest version 3 supercharger of Tesla manages to add 100 kilometers of range in your car within a space of 5 minutes. So, I mean, just imagine within 5 minutes, your car can go additional 100 kilometers, and slowly but surely the lines between refueling of an EV versus refueling of an IC engine cars are blurring. Now, the question is, has rapid charging arrived in India? How far are we away from getting, where do we stand in the entire hierarchy of things? So we definitely have slow charging, we definitely have fast charging. And the answer to whether we have rapid charging is yes. So Hyundai Kona is one of the cars which works on the CCS protocol, and you can rapid charge the Hyundai Kona. And typically it charges at around 50 kilowatt, and the charging time itself is around, within 45 minutes, you can add 400 kilometers of range to the car. Moving on. So now, one of the key insights which in fact helped us in this journey of achieving 4 million kilometers on BlueSmart was how to utilize our chargers. Now, charger utilization is basically the time for which you are using your charger for a day. So a 50% utilization means that you use the charger 12 hours in a day, but obviously it's not constant. It keeps on varying across the day. Now, what we learned over many months of our operation is that there is an ideal range at which you need to keep your charger utilization. So this is something which we have modeled out, we have experimented practically, and what we learned is this, that we have divided it, the utilization into 3 zones. There is a red zone. Anything below a 35% utilization of your charger is not good, because it does not allow you to meet the unit economics of the charger. So setting up a charger would not be profitable if you are utilizing it at less than 35%. Similarly, if you utilize the charger a lot, which would be above 55%, what it leads to is that you are not able to charge your cars in a sufficient numbers, and especially during as per the demand curve, during peak times, the morning peak and the evening peak, you are not able to get all your cars out on the road. So what we realized is there is a sweet spot between 35% and 55%, which we call the green zone. So anything between these two is what allows us to make your charging profitable, as well as helps you to get sufficient cars out on the road as well. So it kind of balances both the aspects of the business. So next, I would like to invite Tushar to speak more about whether electric EV mobility is sustainable.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Rishabh. I think that's an extremely important question, Rishabh, because the environmental impact of running EVs, is that just a theoretical concept, or is there actually something that EVs do to the environment, right? And I think we had kind of seen a lot of questions that had come to us pre-hand, which were on those lines. And I literally thank those people for asking that question, because that just tells us it's not only the people at BlueSmart, but even a lot of you out there who are concerned about the environment and hence are ready to action on it, right? But before that, guys, just to help you understand how bad environment or air pollution affects us, here is how our city skyline used to look like, right? Just a few weeks back, right? And as per a World Health Organization estimate, there are 3.4 million people who die every year on account of outside air pollution. Now, another estimate says about 30% of the air pollution is caused by automobile tailpipe emission, right? By which simple mathematics, it's safe to say that about 1 million people a year, guys, die because of air pollution led by automobiles, right? Having said that, BlueSmart is playing its small critical role in its capacity to save the environment. And over the 40 lakh kilometers that we have driven on electric vehicles over the last few months, we have saved upwards of 500 tons of CO2, carbon dioxide, for the environment. Now, having said that, the next obvious question that comes to the mind is, what exactly does it mean when you save 500 tons of CO2, right? So just to help you with that, so for every kilometer that you ride on an electric vehicle, there's 125 grams of CO2, carbon dioxide, that you save compared to a fossil fueled car, right? Petrol, CNG, any other forms of fueling which comes from fossil fuels. On an average, the number of kilometers you ride in a car over an year, that will bring this number to about 780 kilograms of carbon dioxide that you would save by being on an electric vehicle as compared to a fossil fueled vehicle. Now, what does that even mean, right? So what that means is 780 kilograms of CO2 is equivalent to what about 35 fully grown trees absorb in an entire year. So that's the amount of carbon dioxide is what you save for the environment that you yourself live in, right? And it is not just carbon dioxide, right? It's a lot of other hazardous gases which fossil fueled cars kind of emit, right? This is on lines of particulate matter, which is known as soot. There is carbon monoxide, lead, and other such gases which an EV completely eliminates from the chain, right? Also, not just that, right? I'll just introduce to a concept where EVs are also more efficient when it comes to converting the energy from the fueling system into kinetic energy. right? So when a gasoline in the conventional vehicles combust to power a car, approximately 20% of that energy is converted into powering the car. On the other hand, for EVs, that same number is about 60%, right? So 60% of the energy, the electrical energy stored in the car, is converting into kinetic energy. So EVs are not just less polluting, they're also a better, a more efficient use of the fueling system that they use to power themselves, right? Having said that, guys, I'll kind of also address the elephant in the room, which is a lot of us also know that the electricity that we use to charge our electric vehicles is produced using thermal power, right? Where you end up burning some form of fossil fuel, right? Which is fully right. Having said that, as of today in India, 21% of the electricity that is generated using renewable sources of energy. By which simple mathematics, again, at least 21% is what an electric vehicle is better off than a fossil fueled car as of today. Having said that, in the Paris Agreement, what India has proposed is that by 2027, which is just 7 years from now, India wants to generate 57% of its total electricity in the country using renewable sources of energy, which means with every passing year, there is more growing benefits that using electric vehicles brings to the environment that we all are breathing in. So specifically to the question, which is what is the overall environment impact? And obviously you have run 40 lakh kilometers, right? So that's equal to saying that we have saved upwards of what 25,000 fully grown trees would have absorbed in the entire year is the amount of CO2 that us by running 40,000 plus lakh kilometers on electric vehicles, right? And just to also contextualize this in terms of what does that again mean? What is 25,000 trees? So imagine 60 acres of land, which is fully planted with fully grown, huge, humongous trees. The amount of CO2 this kind of piece of land will absorb is what our vehicles have absorbed in the last 9 to 10 months of us running on all electric cars for our society, right? So that's where we are, guys. Having said that, there is also something very interesting that we found as a lot of questions that people were interested in asking us at this current stage, which is what is us as BlueSmart, which is talking about so much about sustainability and environment, are doing for the safety in the current scheme of things, which is a world which is hit by COVID-19, right? So we would love to take this opportunity to also share with you what we as BlueSmart are intending to do as soon as the lockdowns are over and you guys plan to then step out, and we'll be there to service you. So I'll request Anirudh to help us go through and share with us what BlueSmart is going to do for you guys in the coming days.
Hey, thanks so much, Tushar. In fact, if you hadn't already brought this up, I just noticed that there were around, I think 25 odd questions about what is BlueSmart doing now that, we are in a COVID era, and there is obviously fear and anxiety about how is mobility going to play out and what BlueSmart is doing to address it, right? So I'll take this opportunity to actually answer a few more questions that people had about vehicle ownership, and I will also tie in both the answers because I think it makes logical sense at this point. First of all, I think a lot of you were asking about, what are BlueSmart vehicles, who owns these vehicles, does BlueSmart own all these vehicles, etc. Right? So I think the important part here is that BlueSmart takes full ownership of the operations and maintenance of these vehicles, and we source it through various other investors, other leasing companies, other large bodies that want to deploy fleets of cars, say 20 cars, 50 cars, 100 cars, 200 cars, so on and so forth. And we basically get the driver partner and the car. We pair the driver partner and the car. We take care of the entire operations at the hub. We refuel these cars and we make sure that the car reaches you the way we promised, right? So that is something, that is the difference that, BlueSmart is bringing into, the mobility industry from what happened before, right? What this also gives us as an opportunity to do is to serve you better when it comes to things like safety and sanitization and hygiene, because we are doing our best in all our hub areas. I mean, we have actually created various, we basically run these hubs with, strict social distancing norms, and we're planning to bring in a host of new features that are going to come in as soon as, once this lockdown ends and you're going to start using the BlueSmart app again. There are going to be a host of new safety and sanitization features. So we were already taking it very seriously, and we plan to take it to the next level right now, because I think driver and passenger safety is of utmost importance right now for us, right? So a few things that we are doing, and this list is not exhaustive and not in any particular order of precedence. One of the things that we are doing is we are insisting on masks. While the city and the state and the country itself is looking at, there are masks for all movements that have started, and there are people also who are taking it much more seriously. But we are also going to make it mandated for using a mask in BlueSmart for the driver as well as for the passenger, for everybody's safety, right? So in a shared mobility environment, for everybody to be safe, each of us have to be safe, right? So that is how, if we take care of ourselves, we take care of everyone, and that's the situation that we find ourselves in. So everyone wears a mask is definitely one of the things that we are looking at. Every driver partner will 100% have a mask. We are also looking to create a safety cockpit, which is basically a way in which the driver partner and the passenger can be separated physically, and there is no direct transmission of, there is no touch transmission that is possible between the driver partner, who especially is ferrying so many passengers during the day, and definitely is, in the high risk category compared to even the passenger, because they're meeting so many different people, right? So one of the things that we are definitely doing is, creating a cockpit, and actually disinfecting that cockpit and disinfecting the entire cab, all the interiors of the cab, including the seats, including the frequently touched places, which are like the door handles, like the windows, like, the outside door handle, the window, the switch for the window, or the knob for the lever for the window, etc., etc. These are things that we are definitely disinfecting on a very, very regular basis. And we're also planning to put a timestamp on, when we are actually sanitizing it, for your comfort, for your safety. So think of it like, when you go to a washroom in a hotel or in an office, you often see there's a timestamp saying that this was last sanitized at, right? So you can start expecting that kind of level of safety when it comes to, what we will do at BlueSmart as well, because that is something I think that will make me feel comfortable, and I hope that will make you feel comfortable as well. And one of the things that I would also encourage is, please take to maybe, Instagram or Facebook or, any of the social media channels, and please give us your feedback as well. Tell us what you think would be right, what you think additionally we can do to actually make you feel safer, and we will do our level best to make that happen, right? So that's something that we will do. We are also having, infrared, basically the non-contact temperature measurement devices that we will use to measure the driver partner's temperature or monitor the temperature at all points at exit and entry, and make sure that everyone is, at least healthy to the known level at any point of time when they are driving. And everyone is being has been given healthy encouragement to take a break if they feel like they have any symptoms of cold, cough, etc. So I think that is also something that we had already brought into place before the lockdown began, and I think we will continue with that piece even after after the lockdown ends. And we are also going to all BlueSmart passengers. I mean, I would also inform you that we are also planning to keep the AC in external circulation mode rather than the internal recirc mode. I think that improves the level of. I mean, we are entering summer. So let us confront reality. I mean, to switch off the AC entirely, I mean, if it is your preference, we'll be happy to do that and open the window. But if as the temperatures are rising and we're going to see the mercury rise through the next month, 2 months, and we don't know how this situation, is going to play out. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. So we are taking as best care as possible when it comes to using the AC as well. And one of the other things that I would strongly recommend you to do, not only on a BlueSmart ride, but across all platforms that you use, at least in the short term, stop using cash. I mean, the good part is that, I haven't gone to an ATM in the last, I think probably 6 to 7 odd weeks, maybe 7 weeks back, I went to an ATM. the good part is lot of us aren't going to ATMs because even keying in those buttons at an ATM feels like a high risk activity to me right now, and I'm sure that a lot of you feel this way. But also handling of cash between you don't want to, you want to minimize the handling of cash, and that's why we are going to encourage, we're going to promptly, and we're going to encourage you to go cashless when it comes, when we restart our operations. And we will endeavor to support as many different payment methods as possible, and we will go cashless. So that is one option, one route that we are encouraging all our all participants in the BlueSmart ecosystem to follow, right? So broadly, these are a few things, a few ideas that that we have had when it comes to how we're going to restart our operations, and we hope to restart our operations very soon. And our driver partners are also very eager to get started again. I mean, as you can imagine, I mean, apart from the fact that we don't know how the situation is going to play out, but at least the people in Gurgaon, the driver partners in Gurgaon, are going to enter, get back into service as soon as possible. And we hope to have the entire fleet up and running, and you should be able to schedule your cab again in 45 minutes, right? So I think that's where we are. I think that's pretty much it from me. I think if any of the, we have actually entered the official Q&A session, and we've got a bunch of questions. And I'd encourage, I've picked out, I know a few questions that I want to answer here, but I'll be happy if, probably Rishabh or Tushar wants to go first, and I'll jump in next.
Sure, Anirudh. So thank you so much, guys. I think there is an overwhelming number of questions that are coming in. So let them keep come in. We'll keep collating them in the sense so that we answer the majority of them. So a quick question that I would want to pick up on the lines where people want to know, and I think that kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier, is what is the source of electricity, right? So as I had shared, the electricity that we use for electric vehicles as of today in our electric vehicle charging network is the same that comes from the grid, right? And the grid is fed by electricity that is generated via various other sources in the entire country. This comes from a lot of thermal power electricity generation. There is hydro that plays a role. There is a lot which comes through solar electricity generation as well. And I had shared about 22% of our country's electricity generation today happens through renewable sources, which is solar, hydro, wind specifically, right? Having said that, guys, something interesting that we are already are working on is a combination of having fully solar powered electric vehicle charging stations, right? In which case we'll not even be dependent on the grid to be serving our charging stations, but the rooftop solar electricity that we'll generate in the specific places where we have put up charging stations, they'll be fully and 100% powered by renewable, which is solar in this case, which will make it 100% clean electricity, and hence nothing beats that, right? So a lot of our current source is a mix, but going forward, one, by virtue of India having much more source coming from renewable energies will play a role, and we ourselves as BlueSmart will focus a lot more on renewable sources in our small way that we can. Yeah.
So
Rishabh, would you love to take the next question maybe?
Sure. I see that at least there are 5 to 10 questions which have come up on what is the impact of battery life with respect to fast charging. So there is no, I would say there is no clear answer to this. It would depend from manufacturer to manufacturer and the kind of battery which they are using. But typically, I think some of the cars which we use, we recommend that after 3 fast charging cycles, we have a slow charging cycle as well. So that helps in prolonging the battery life. And for some cars, you can just directly do a fast charge. So I think it depends on the kind of battery you are using, the kind of specifications which are being provided by the manufacturer. So yes, there is some impact, but everyday technology is improving. And going forward, I mean, so when we look at a car like Tesla, which charges at 150 kilowatt, which is an extremely high speed. So yes, the improvement in technology is kind of making the slow charge versus fast charge debate kind of insignificant when it comes to the battery life.
Great. Anirudh, there are a couple of other questions that are coming in, which I think you might be very well suited to take up. So would you love to take a hit on one of those?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at a bunch of questions when it comes to, actually, a lot of people have asked regarding the vehicle and, the life of the vehicle, right? And I think this is a good platform to actually look at the life of the vehicle itself. And I think it's a very valid question. So as you can imagine, I think when I told you in an initial slide that the number of components in an EV, the number of moving parts in an EV is much lower than the number of moving parts when it comes to an internal combustion engine vehicle. What this effectively also means is that the vibrations and the wear and tear of all these parts are also much lower, right? The number of parts that actually move with respect to each other and cause vibrational wear and tear, etc., are much lower. Therefore, it is also easier to drive. It causes less driver fatigue, but it also helps in the longevity of the vehicle, the body, the chassis, and the entire framework of the body, right? And this is why people, I mean, you might have often heard people say that the life of the EV is actually much longer than the life of a normal vehicle. That is true, with the exception of one part, which is actually the battery, which ties in very closely to what Rishabh says. So there is one thing when it comes to batteries, which is called state of charge, which we talked about, which is basically the state at the percentage of charge, just like your phone battery, right? When you look at your phone battery, there is a state of charge that your phone battery has, and you obviously charge it from 20% to 100%. But there is also an indicator called state of health, right? Now, what is the state of health? If you understand how if all of you have had mobile phones for probably a decade now, and you know that after a particular period of time, the amount of time it takes to charge your phone changes, and your phone starts discharging faster, right? Why does all of this happen? That's because the state of health of the battery is actually deteriorating over a period of time, over a number of charge cycles. So most of these batteries are rated for and warranted for a particular number of charge cycles, and also for a particular type of charging. So you can charge it at multiple rates, like 1C2. So basically there are various rates of charging. I encourage you to read about the rates of charging, and depending on how fast you charge it, you also influence the life of the battery itself. So therefore, there is obviously a point in the time of lifetime of the EV that you can expect that the battery would effectively require to be changed, but the vehicle itself probably has a much longer life, right? So therefore, at that point, and yes, BlueSmart is definitely researching, and we're looking at various ways to do it, wherein how can we have a change in the entire battery, right, going forward, and how can we have a longevity of the vehicle itself. These are all problems that the entire ecosystem is solving, and BlueSmart is looking at it very, very seriously, right? And the additional tie-in question to this is, what will you do with the battery itself? Because obviously a lot of people have brought it up, and it's very true that just like you're preventing air pollution, but what about the lithium-ion battery, right? So first of all, I'll answer that with a flippant remark, and that's not my take on it. But my basically the only point that I bring you to is to say that EVs, there are so many risks to EVs. There are lithium-ion batteries. What are you going to do with so many lithium-ion batteries once the EVs run out of life? So first of all, I would like to point out that the problem with lithium-ion batteries are not going to happen with EVs. They're going to happen with all the mobile phones. So there are billions of mobile phones that are going out of use every day, every year, and the amount of lithium-ion battery waste that is being created by that far outweighs what is happening with the EV industry. That being said, there is a lot of research that we are doing, that a lot of industry is doing, to create second life use cases of these batteries, to actually figure out what are the other things you can do with these batteries. While it can't power maybe a full-fledged EV, what can we do with these EVs in a second life, and what can happen after that? What is a sustainable and what is a responsible way to dispose of these batteries? These are all ways that we are currently researching. I think our oldest vehicles are probably 15 odd months old. So we haven't reached that stage where it has ever happened. We haven't experienced it, but I'm sure that, probably a subsequent webinar is where we're, going to spend some time in covering this on the, the future of the battery and what we do with these batteries.
Great. Thank you so much, Anirudh. So another set of questions that are kind of correlated are on the lines of the model ownership model for our cars, right? So do the driver partners own it? Does BlueSmart own it? Who owns these cars in today's world, right? So I think I'll quickly kind of give my take on that, guys. So as our belief today is that a driver partners never a financier in his life, right? His key skill set is to drive and give you a good service, right? Good service, which includes a good way of driving and as well as upkeeping the asset that he's responsible for. So at BlueSmart, our model owner, the car ownership model is one where neither the driver partner, not we as BlueSmart own these cars. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of partners out there, which ranges from a few government entities to a lot many third-party HNIs out there who love to and who understand the business of financing, are the ones who own these cars, and they lease out these assets to us for a fixed period of time for us to be controlling, maintaining, and engaging with driver partners to use those cars and then give you guys the service that we are today able to. And that also ties into what Anirudh was sharing with us earlier about what we will be able to do in the post-COVID world, because by virtue of these cars being under our control, we are able to touch base with them multiple times in a day on account of us having to charge them for that at the least, is when we'll be able to do all the magic to the cars to make them as safe as possible and be at your service every time you want one. Great. So if we have Rishabh, and I think he dropped off for a minute, but he's back.
Sure.
Would you
Another set of questions which I think many people want to know is what is happening in the space of battery swapping. So battery swapping is something which is there in two-wheelers. You can remove one battery, insert another battery, and you are good to go. So you don't need to charge it, and you can charge the other battery at your own time. It is something which we have also seen in the three-wheeler space. In four-wheeler, as of now, we don't. We currently do not see much future in battery swapping because the battery itself forms a significant weight in terms of the overall weight of the car, and replacing that the battery is something which is not very simple. It's very time consuming, and it requires a lot of technical expertise. So we right now we are not really seeing battery swapping for the four-wheeler because I mean the sizes of the batteries are increasing, the ranges are increasing. So we imagine that probably during the lifetime of the car you would be able to replace the battery after maybe 3-4 years and get a new battery, but the swapping itself is something which is not really happening in the space of four-wheelers. Another question which people have asked is, are there fast chargers within Gurgaon? So as of BlueSmart, so we have 169 chargers across Gurgaon, and a significant number of these are fast chargers. So yes, there are fast chargers in Gurgaon, and at least BlueSmart has a lot of fast chargers within here. But having said that, if we talk about the public fast charging facility, it's not really up to the number as you would compare to say a Delhi, where you have a lot of fast charging stations which are available to the public in places like CP, Nehru Place, etc. Having said that, the government is actually going to set up over 2,000 fast charging stations in the next 3 to 4 years. So there are definitely plans to expand on this, and we foresee that there is soon going to be a time where even personally owning a electric car and getting access to fast charging would be possible.
And just adding to the point on charging, right? I think some of you might be very interested to understand how this entire charging piece is going to play out, right, in the future. So first of all, as BlueSmart, what we always talk about is that we are an ecosystem partner. We are an ecosystem player. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and one person cannot, change the universe. So what we do believe is in, partnerships to bring, partners on board when it comes to vehicles. I mean, our vehicles are, brought in by partners, and we run it for, we run it together, and we run it, and they benefit from it, we benefit from it. Similarly, we have a same approach towards chargers as well when it comes to that, right? So what I do encourage is, and I realize that some of you here are from, do have your own electric mobility companies, and, you may be looking at charging as options. So we do have, we are open to getting, other partners who can actually power our infrastructure. So while we have around 170 chargers in Gurgaon already, we are looking to grow very fast. So we are always looking at opportunities in, how can we improve charging for fleet, right? And the core difference between charging for fleet and charging for personal mobility is that in your personal mobility, generally slow charging works well enough, because for slow charging you can charge it overnight, and and you can do it downstairs in your office, or at home. But when it comes to a fleet, since you want to have a high uptime, as what Rishabh said earlier, right, you want to have a large number of fast chargers. And therefore, what we are definitely looking at is, we're looking at, catering to a large part of Gurgaon, and then, Delhi, and expanding outwards, very fast. So we are looking at models wherein we could get, places, and load in various locations, so that we can create a charging infrastructure, in a partnership basis. So this is something that we also explore. That being said, I think one interesting anecdote that can be mentioned here is, as charging evolves in India, right? What is going to eventually happen is there are going to be certain chargers that are going to be focused more on fleet, and then there are going to be certain chargers that are focused on you and me, and when we start buying our first EVs and second EVs and so on and so forth, right? When it comes to this category of people such as you and me who are going to drive our own EVs, there's going to be, charging is not going to be just like a petrol pump. It's going to become more of a charging experience. So there, a lot of other things are going to come around the entire charging, the charging infrastructure. You could probably have, recreational activities that happen, so that you can plug in your car, you can go do your thing, you can do shopping, you can probably watch a movie, or something of that sort. There are several brilliant minds around the world who are planning these things out, and I think India would be no different in the future when it comes to personal mobility. When it comes to fleet mobility, of course, I mean, that is something that we are very, very focused on, and that's something that we are building expertise in, and we're happy to invite people who want to partner us in this journey when it comes to the entire building, charging the fleets of EVs that are going to power Indian mobility in the future.
Great. Another question, guys, that we are getting is on lines of what kind of support does the government lend to the EV ecosystem, right? Because everyone knows that the government kind of wants a lot of EV adoption, but what is really happening from the government side, right? So I would love to just address that in a short fashion. So obviously Rishabh had touched upon that earlier in his section, where he was telling us how electricity tariffs, special electricity tariffs, are available across states who have adopted EV policies for themselves, where the EV meters that get installed come at a much less price point per unit of consumption as compared to what you and I consume at our homes, or even in commercial industrial uses, right? So there are special EV tariffs that the governments have across the states. On purchase of an electric vehicle as an individual, what the governments give you is 1.5 lakhs of income tax benefit on the purchase of an electric vehicle as an individual. And at the same time, if as a business you end up buying an electric vehicle, there is accelerated depreciation benefits that come along with it, and then businesses fully and completely love that, right? At the same time, there are other schemes that you might have heard of as well, which is, there is the FAME 2, which is now active. There are other state subsidies, to name a few. There's one called DPCC from the Delhi government, which supports a lot of fleet owners who want to adopt electric vehicles and leave the IC engine vehicles behind, is what the state and the central governments together are doing to support a lot of this EV ecosystem to grow at a much faster pace. So I think the governments are doing a fine job out there to help businesses like ourselves and any and everyone else out there.
Thanks, Tushar. So another interesting question which has come up is, does driving behavior impact the range of the electric vehicle? And the answer is yes. So in fact, all our cars are connected cars. So every minute we get all the information about the cars, the speed at which it is going, where it is, and we do a lot of big data analysis on these. Just like a normal car, which you drive, a petrol car, it range would depend on its mileage would depend on how you drive it. Same thing happens with EV. So you drive at a good reasonable speed and you get a better range. There is also this concept of regenerative braking, where the kinetic energy of the car gets converted into energy, and it kind of increases the range of the vehicle. And I mean, if you drive it well, you can even get a range higher than the rated range of the vehicle. So there are a lot of concepts and techniques which can be applied, and you can get a very good range.
Great. Thanks, Rishabh. Guys, I think we're almost closing towards the 5 p.m. mark. One thing that I want to share, and it's coming up as a lot of questions as well from the audience, which is around, are we hiring? So the clean and clear answer to that is yes. We are growing as a company on an everyday basis, and we are looking for smart and intelligent folks to come and join us in this journey, and we'll be really happy for you to do so. We are as a way forward. I think I would say try to hit any of us up on LinkedIn. That's one of the best ways to probably do so. Or at the same time, you can probably drop in your a quick one line and the CV at careers@blue-smart.com, and we'll be happy to look into that and reach out to you guys. With that, guys, we would love to move forward to the last section in the last few minutes that's left for this. And I would request Anirudh to share more about that.
So I think a lot of you have been asking about, can we share this presentation, and, how do we, what about the insights? Can we have a look at that in more detail? So here's good news for you guys. So what we'll do at the end of this is, we're going to come out with an actual BlueSmart EV report. It's been fully done by professionals. We've actually captured the essence of all our learnings over the past 9, 10, 11 months running EVs across various segments, right from charging to onboarding of the fleet to the the governance angle of things, and the pollution aspect as well. And we've actually compiled that into a report that will actually help anyone understand the EV segment better, and also plan for what is to come in the future. So we do make predictions as to what we see happening in multiple horizons, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years going forward, based on what our experience currently has been. The BlueSmart EV report is going to release very soon as the lockdown ends. We are only not putting a date on it right now because we aren't very sure on when the lockdown ends, but otherwise sometime in the next month, that is sometime around the mid of May, is when we will release the BlueSmart EV report. We've done a lot of research. We've also talked to a lot of industry partners, top level professionals in various other from the OEMs, from the charging side, from the discoms, from the government, and actually use that as inputs to build out our BlueSmart EV report. And I hope that will help and inform your opinion about electric mobility going forward. I would also use this as an opportunity to thank you all for attending this webinar and being part of it. Please do keep sending in your views. You can connect with each of us on our LinkedIn, or you could even mail us at on our email IDs, or you could LinkedIn is probably the best way. And thanks so much again for making it, and we'll keep you informed on the BlueSmart EV report. And all of you who are already part of the EV ecosystem, let's gear up for an electrifying future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye.